Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McGrilly and Jamie Lane in the Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la.
Good evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks, live here on YouTube, 7 p.m, episode 5. As you will have seen from the thumbnail, our episode tonight is From Needy to Greedy. We are live, as I've said, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Of course, for those of you who are listening live, you'll hear me saying 7 p.m. But you'll be shouting at your phone or your laptop and saying, but Mr. Bandido, it is not 7 p.m. It is actually 21 minutes past 8. So why are you saying 7 p.m.? Well, before we get into tonight's show, I'm going to divulge something very amusing to all of the people who may be watching live, or to all of the people who may end up watching this particular live stream at some stage in the future. So I come on to the show. We're live right now, and I'm saying it's Bandido Talks episode 5, live on YouTube, 7 p.m. But again, for anybody who's watching live, you will realize that it is not 7 p.m. So why am I saying 7 p.m.? What is this amusing thing that I'm going to tell you right now, live on Bandido Talks? Here's the amusing thing. Remember, before I get into it, Bandido Talks is all about what are the lessons that we can learn from guests? What are the lessons we can learn from common media? What are the lessons we can learn from one another? Because if the Bandido Talks community starts to grow, and maybe some people start to comment live in the chat during our live streams. People leave comments under our YouTube shorts, under our live stream, videos that are then posted after the live stream event, maybe some of our pre-recorded episodes with guests, as the Bandido Talks community starts to grow and evolve. We can hopefully learn things from one another, learn lessons from our own experience. Why am I saying this? Here is the reason why I'm saying this. I thought I had went live at 7 p.m. So this is the amusing thing. I have, since 7 o'clock, been talking into my camera, thinking I was live. I thought I was live. And I just did what I thought was a cracking show for about an hour and 6 minutes. And then what happens? I go into my streaming software. I'm chuffed with myself. I've taken off the headphones. I'm thinking, oh, that was a really good show tonight. And I'm getting ready to maybe get my Rumble live stream up and going. I was going to have a quick drink of water and then head straight over to Rumble. I go into my streaming software at about 10 past 8. So I think I've been live. I think I have been live. I think that I've done a great show. A really valuable show. I go into my streaming software and guess what? I wasn't live. I was not live. So I've been talking into this video camera for 1 hour and 6 minutes. And then I realize I wasn't even live. How about that? What about that for a lesson, folks? What is the lesson? The lesson is, when you are going live, please make sure that the streaming software has been linked up, in this case, to YouTube. And most importantly of all, make sure that when you're in YouTube Studio to hit the Go Live button. Okay, so I thought I was live at 7 p.m. It turns out I wasn't. And so when this struck me, initially I didn't want to believe it. I thought to myself, this can't be right. So I went onto my phone and I thought, no, this cannot be right. Surely I've been live. I couldn't possibly have been just talking to the wall behind my video camera. Surely this hasn't happened. I go into my phone and I go onto my own YouTube page, and of course it says live stream upcoming. Live stream upcoming. Which means the live stream has not started. Well, as you can imagine, once the penny dropped and I realized, oh dear, I have been speaking for over an hour and I haven't been live. I was a little bit frustrated. Just a little bit frustrated. I was getting ready to go over to Rumble. I thought I was, in the flow. I thought I'd done a great show. Well, I hope I entertained the neighbours. Because to my right, I have neighbours. And to my left, I have neighbours. And maybe they could hear me doing all of this talking next door. So maybe they were entertained. That was I suppose you could say, the little bit of solace that I took. I thought to myself, well, maybe someone's been entertained. Maybe someone has got some value out of the last hour and 6 minutes. So to my neighbours, if they have been listening, thank you for being with me. In spirit, I didn't realise you were maybe watching, and well, you couldn't have been watching unless, I don't know, there's some magical technology that exists that allows you to see through walls, but maybe they were able to enjoy the audio version of what I thought was live here on Bandido Talks on a Friday night for our Let's Reflect episode. So, when this happened, and I only realised this let me see, what is the time? 27 minutes past 8. I only realised this about really 10 to 15 minutes ago. So I thought to myself, what should I do? Should I let the error in my thinking of how a live stream works stop me from going on and rectifying the process and, getting the ship back on track again? Or should I just jack it in and not bother doing anything tonight? I chose option 1. I thought there is no fucking way in hell I am going to let this little mishap stop me from coming on and doing tonight's show. Tonight's show will go ahead. It is, I suppose, an hour and 20 minutes late. Oh well. The clocks will change at the weekend, so maybe it's not as bad anyway, because when the clocks change, I suppose it's only 7:30. It's only 7:30. That's what I'm going to tell myself. It's only 7:30. I'm only 30 minutes late. I'm not really 90 minutes late. Anyway, there's your amusing story to start tonight's live show. So this is actually the second time that I've went on and done a live show tonight. Oh well, this is the beauty of doing, I suppose, live shows and this kind of thing. Whenever you pre-record things, it's a lot simpler. All you have to do is hit start recording and then stop recording, and the video saves to your hard drive. When you go live, it's a little more complicated, and things can, of course, go wrong. And go wrong they have. But that's not going to stop us tonight. We're going to do our live stream. We're a little bit late. Now, for any folks who are listening and watching live, or any folks who are listening and watching the recording of this live stream that's been subsequently posted since the stream, we do normally go live at 7 p.m. That is normally what we do here on Bandido Talks. Every Friday, every Saturday, and every Sunday we go live from 7 p.m. Normally we go for around an hour. So 7 p.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tonight's episode is a Let's Reflect episode, which means we take our Tuesday upload and we dive into it in a little more detail and sort of reflect on the episode and see what further lessons we can extract from that episode. Now, as you would have perhaps realised, Tuesday's upload did not have a guest. So I'm still in the process of getting our guest episodes sorted. Those will be coming soon. But in place of the guest episode, I decided to upload a best bits video. That was Tuesday's upload this week. A best bits. What is a best bits from Bandido Talks? Well, a best bits episode is where we essentially take some of the best clips from last week's show, particularly from our news on the tube on Saturday and Sunday when we went live last week. So what I did was I took 4 of the best clips, in my humble opinion, put them together into one video, which was about 5 or 6 minutes long, and that was our Tuesday upload. And so what we're going to do tonight, we obviously didn't have a guest, so what we're going to do tonight on our Let's Reflect is we're going to break down the Tuesday upload, and in particular the 4 stories that we covered on Tuesday's upload. So Tuesday's upload covered 4 stories, and we're going to go down through as many of these stories as possible and see what are the lessons that we can extract. And I think it's going to be a really good show. Now, that's the second time I've said that tonight. I already said that at 7 p.m. when I thought I was live, and I was not live. But from what I can tell, I believe I'm live now. So we're going to go again and see, take 2. What can we learn from our Tuesday upload? How can we reflect and dive a little deeper into, in this case, our best bits upload from Bandido Talks last week and see what we can learn from those 4 stories? Now, before we get into tonight's show, which I actually think is going to be a really good show. It is going to be a really good show. We're a little bit late for the reasons that we've already talked about, but it's not going to stop us. It's not going to stop us extracting value here on a Friday night from stories that we have present in our Tuesday upload. Before we get into tonight's episode, episode 5, okay, before we get into it, I'm going to say, feel free to like the video, feel free to comment, get active in the live chat, okay? If you're watching it after the stream has been posted, feel free to get down into the comment section. So like the video if you find it interesting, comment in the live chat or get into the comment section when this video has been posted. And of course, if you find what we do here at Bandido Talks valuable in some way, you find it interesting, then you can of course subscribe to the channel. We're going to have loads of content coming your way in the incoming weeks. We of course have our 3 live episodes, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 7 p.m, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We will always be live, and then we will always have a Tuesday upload. It'll either be with a guest or it will be a best bits video upload. So there'll be plenty of content coming your way. 4 episodes, I suppose you could say, every week. The Tuesday episode, and then the Friday, Saturday and Sunday live shows at 7 p.m. And then, of course, we'll be releasing little shorts throughout the week as well. So lots of content coming here from Bandido Talks. After tonight's show, even though I'm late, I thought I was on time, but even though I'm late, after tonight's show, we're going to go over to Rumble. Of course, my plan for Rumble was to... And says you, what is Rumble? Rumble is a video hosting platform very similar to YouTube. It is a YouTube competitor, you could say, and I'm posting some exclusive live content over on the Bandido Talks Rumble channel. So feel free to go over to Rumble and check out the channel there. We have a live series that we do on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, straight after our YouTube live episode. We go straight over to Rumble, and then we do another live stream called Ramble on Rumble. So I'm going to go over to Rumble whenever I finish here, at whatever time that is. It'll probably be about 9:30, later than expected. So feel free to go over to Rumble and check out Bandido Talks over there. And of course, there will be, as I said, exclusive content over on Rumble. There's only content that I post to Rumble and nowhere else. And that content is specifically, as I've said, live streams on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday that normally take place at 8 p.m. Okay? But not tonight. So anyway, with all of that out of the road, let's get into tonight's show. Episode 5. As you will have seen from the thumbnail, and indeed the title of the episode, Episode 5, From Needy to Greedy. From needy to greedy. So, this is going to be a really good show. Really interesting. Okay, we're going to cover some really interesting ground here. And the basis, the thing that we're going to use is our Tuesday upload. So for anybody who has not seen the Tuesday upload, the best bits from last week's show, you don't have to go watch it now. Stay with us here live. Live is live. You can always watch it after the live stream is finished. But for those people who have not seen the Tuesday upload, okay, the best bits episode, I'm going to explain very quickly what we did in that episode. And what we did was we took 4 stories from last week's News on the Tube live shows and we put them together in one video. What were these 4 stories? The 4 stories were as follows. Story number 1 was about a motorcyclist in Albania who got off his motorcycle, ignored all the signs saying, "Do not feed the wild bears if you see them," on the side of the road. This motorcyclist got off his motorcycle, saw a wild bear just off the road, decided, "I'm going to feed this bear and I'm going to record myself feeding this bear." Of course, what happened? The bear had a couple of cubs. It charged at him, it attacked him, and it killed him. Okay, that was the first story. The second story was about how the UK government is going to vow to create 400,000 new jobs by 2030 for electricians, plumbers and welders. Our third story was about how Trump thinks that Putin may be playing him, okay, with respect to the Ukrainian and Russian war. And then our fourth and final story that we covered in our Best Bits episode uploaded on Tuesday past was about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury potentially getting this long-awaited fight underway, and according to Anthony Joshua's promoter, Edward Hearn, it is an inevitability. The fight is going to happen. It is inevitable that Anthony Joshua will fight Tyson Fury. So those were our 4 stories that we dealt with on our Tuesday upload, okay? And the plan here tonight, okay, is to go down through those stories in a little bit more detail. And when I say a little bit more detail, what I mean is we're going to analyze as many of these stories as possible through the perspective of neediness and greediness. And oftentimes, both in the one story. Okay? So this is the perspective that we're going to take tonight. We're going to look at these stories and see how they are related to neediness, greediness, or perhaps both. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is most people, now maybe there's somebody who maybe does not apply to. Perhaps this person exists, okay? But I think most people have what we are going to call pet hates. What are pet hates? Pet hates are things, behaviors, are things that really grind on certain personalities, okay? What's an example? Let's have a look at a few examples of pet hates that people may have. So let's take example number 1. A pet hate that somebody may have is when we have silverware scraping off a ceramic plate. So we all know that sound that silverware can make against a ceramic plate. You know that squeaky noise that happens whenever the two objects collide? Well, to some people cannot bear to listen to that noise that is created. And that person may say, well, that's a pet hate of mine. It really grinds my gears when I hear people squeaking their silverware against their ceramic plate. It's a pet hate. It's something that really grinds on that personality. What's another example? Another example might be of a pet hate. Might be someone biting their nails. So to a certain personality type, when a certain personality sees another person biting their nails, it makes them want to turn away and go, oh, I cannot stand that. It grinds my gears and turns my stomach whenever I see someone biting their nails. It's a pet hate, okay, for that particular type of personality. They cannot bear to see someone biting their nails. It really grinds their gears. What's another example? Another example might be someone's pet hate might be when they listen to someone speaking and they use a load of filler words. Like this, for example. You know what I mean? Like, and we're coming on like, we're on like, Bandido Talks tonight, like, and, we're gonna talk about like episode 5, like, and kind of, like, you get the point. Some people, it really grinds their gears when they hear other people using a whole bunch of filler nonsense in their speech. The word like, the phrase So for some people, when they're listening to certain people online or maybe even people in person, it can really grind their gears whenever they hear someone using a load of filler garbage in their speech, okay? So from their perspective, they're thinking, what a load of, I just can't stand whenever people cannot eliminate filler garbage from their speech. So the point here is, many people have pet hates. And I indeed also have pet hates. One of my pet hates is neediness. Being needy, okay? And when I say needy, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is a clinginess. Someone who's really clingy and desperate for your time and energy. We've probably met these people before. They're sort of like energy vampires, needy people who just want you to do things for them, want you to help them out, and maybe they guilt trip you into doing things, and all they want is your energy and your time, and they're so clingy and needy for it. Now, Obviously, let me just make something clear. If someone is genuinely, quote, needy or desperate, for example, let's say there's been a fire, a forest fire, and it's burnt down their house, and they have nowhere to live, and everything in their house has been destroyed, and, they have really nowhere to live for the foreseeable future, and, everything is essentially up the left. Obviously, in a situation like that, I'm going to read the room. I'm going to look at the person in front of me. I'm going to understand their circumstances. I understand that technically they are needy, they need help, they're in a desperate situation, something terrible has happened, and now they're maybe reaching out to me quite genuinely in a very sincere and honest way, and maybe asking for help. That's different. I think we can all understand that that's different. And I think most of us would be able to detect the difference between that and someone who's just so clingy and needy and wants your time and energy because maybe they're lazy and they see you as valuable in some way, that they can kind of offload their issues or their problems to you and you'll sort them out, and they're just always there. They're ringing your doorbell or they're phoning you, Mr. Bandido, can you help me with this? And would you be able to do this thing for me? And could you come out tomorrow evening and do that kind of neediness? Clingy. Okay, I don't like needy and clingy. Okay, so that's one of my pet hates. Now, greediness. Look. Greediness wouldn't be a pet hate. Whenever I see someone being greedy, whether it's greedy with food, they're taking more than their fair share, whether it's with money, they screw some sort of a business competitor in order to get more than their fair share, I wouldn't say it is a pet hate of mine. I don't think it's an admirable trait, but I wouldn't say it's a pet hate. It's just one of those things. It's one of those human behaviors that I see and think, yeah, that's not an admirable trait. But neediness is one of those things that once I smell even just the faintest particle of neediness, when I can smell it, when I can just detect the faintest sign of neediness, clinginess, somebody who is trying to take my time and energy, that really grinds my gears. So this is the thing tonight, okay? We're talking about from needy to greedy. And from what I can tell, I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from our Tuesday upload, from our Best Bits episode, from those 4 stories that we talked about a few minutes ago. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go down through as many of these stories as possible. Let me see what time it is. So we're going to have a good 45 minutes here. A good 45 minutes to go down through as many of these stories as possible. Okay? So, let's have a look at our first story. Our first story was, just to recap again, in case those of you who are watching maybe haven't seen the Tuesday upload, and maybe if you're new and you've never joined a live stream here on Bandido Talks, and certainly if you haven't joined any of our live streams last week, you mightn't be that familiar with some of these stories. So I'm going to just give you a brief rundown of this first story, just so that you understand the lie of the land before we get into it. So our first story, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, okay, just in the introduction to the video, or to the live stream tonight. Our first story was about an Albanian motorcyclist. So this guy out in Albania, I don't even know if he was Albanian, I think he was, but there was a motorcyclist out in Albania. Okay, and he was out on his motorcycle, and he decided to stop. And the reason why he decided to stop was because he saw, just off the road, a grizzly bear. A wild grizzly bear. Now, please bear in mind, folks, as I said last week and in our Best Bits video that we uploaded on Tuesday, there are multiple signs along the road that this gentleman, this motorcyclist was on. There are multiple signs that say, please do not feed the bears. They are wild animals. They are not your friend. They are They have bear psychology, okay? They do not have human psychology. They do not understand civilization from the human perspective. They do not understand law. They do not understand the 10 commandments, if that's your thing. Thou shalt not kill. The grizzly bears do not understand this type of lingo. Okay, so there are these signs along the road saying, do not feed the bears. They are wild and they are potentially dangerous. So what happened? This motorcyclist ignores the signs. He pulls over. He gets off his motorcycle, unarmed, isolated, no way to defend himself. And he decides, I'm going to feed this grizzly bear that I can see just off the road. And what does he do? He goes for his phone. So not only does he decide to feed this grizzly bear, but he then decides, I'm going to record myself feeding the bear. Now what happens? Well, he starts recording and it's looking great. And then we do actually, I believe, have footage of what happened. When he started his video recorder, the bear can be seen charging at him from behind. And what happened? The bear had a couple of cubs, okay, so it clearly got very aggressive. It felt threatened, perhaps in some way. It charged the man, it attacked him, and it killed him. Okay. Now, I could understand why somebody who may be listening to that story might say the following. What a stupid fucking thing to do. Somebody may say that, okay? And I'm not saying they're wrong to say that. Because on the surface of it, it does seem like an act of stupidity. It does seem like an act of stupidity. And I'm not taking a pot shot at the man here, okay? He's obviously lost his life, and it is a tragedy, okay? I can't remember what age he was, but I think he was in his 40s or 50s. I think it was something like that. So there's still plenty of life left on the table for this gentleman. But if we were to sort of pull ourselves away from the whole emotional aspect of him losing his life, and we just look at what he did. He essentially, unarmed, stopped his motorcycle, ignored the warning signs that are on the road not to feed the bears and that they are dangerous wild animals. So they're dangerous and they are wild. They could be hungry, they could have cubs. Okay, he ignored these signs. He gets off his motorcycle, decides to feed the bears. He tries to feed them, and he thinks he's going to take out his mobile phone and record this entire process of feeding the grizzly bear. Now, obviously, what ends up happening, the bear charges, attacks him, and kills him. However, as I've said, I can understand why people would look at this and say, how stupid can you be? Because most people, and you don't even have to be an animal expert, I would argue that if you were to survey 2,000 people and ask those people, do you think wild grizzly bears could pose a high-level risk to an isolated human walking on their own? I think a lot of those 2,000 people would say, yeah, I think a wild grizzly bear coming into contact with an isolated human who is not armed is bad news for the human. And I think most of those 2,000 people in this potential sort of hypothetical survey would probably say that it's not a good idea to approach a wild grizzly bear. Now, from my perspective, if I were this man, obviously I would never have got off my motorcycle. I would have continued to just ride down the road at 100 miles an hour and get to fuck away from all of these wild animals. Okay, I don't want to be around wild animals that eat tissue, wild animals that eat flesh, wild animals that weigh 3, 4, 10 times my weight, 20 times my weight, whatever the hell it is. I don't want to be around flesh-eating, big, wild animals. Not my game. Not fussed on that. So what would I have done? I would never have got off my motorcycle. And obviously, I would run the worst case scenario in my mind. Why would I not get off my motorcycle? Well, if there's a bear on the side of the road, and I can see there's a bear on the side of the road, the first thing that would come to my mind, I would do the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario would be, this bear has cubs and this bear is hungry. That's the worst case scenario for me. Because if you've got a bear that has cubs and you've got a bear that's hungry, so the bear itself's hungry and the cubs are hungry, we have got a recipe for death. That is death's recipe. Okay? We can see what's going to happen there. So I would always run the worst case scenario. And to me, I would think it has cubs and it's hungry. Okay? And by me doing that, okay, that would sort of put me in a frame of mind of saying, even if I had a 0.5% sort of desire to stop, as soon as I would think of that, I would say, that's a terrible idea. This could be a hungry bear, it could be a bear with cubs, it could be both. There's no way I am stopping my motorcycle. So, I think a lot of other people would actually maybe come to a similar conclusion. They would probably think, no, a wild grizzly bear? No thank you. With no barrier, with no protection, I don't want anything to do with that. I think that would be a reasonable response from a whole host of people if we were to survey them. So the question remains, why did this man get off his motorcycle, ignore all of the signs along the road saying, do not feed the bears, they are wild and potentially dangerous? Why does he not only try to feed the bears, but then take out his mobile phone to record the entire encounter? As I said originally, to somebody listening to this story, they would think to themselves, that is an act of stupidity. So, why did he do it? Because something motivated him to do it. Something motivated him to get off that motorcycle, to decide to feed the bears against all of the warnings along the side of the road, against arguably his own intuition. And not only did he feed them, but he decided to take out his phone. Now, the title of tonight's show, From Needy to Greedy. Well, I have a theory as to why I think this gentleman got off his motorcycle, decided to feed the bears, and decided to record himself feeding the grizzly bear. Here's my theory. And look, it's a theory. I can't get into this man's head. He is now dead, okay? And there is no way for anybody to really ever know what his true motivations were for getting off his motorcycle, feeding, and trying to record himself feeding this wild grizzly bear. But I'm going to speculate. I'm going to throw out a theory. And if you're in the chat, or if you're watching this after the stream has already been aired, please get down into the comments. Let me know what you think of my theory. So here it is. When we get into social media, okay? We get into social media normally through this thing. It's called a mobile phone. Now, some people use social media on their laptop, fair enough. But most people consume and upload content through their mobile phone because it's convenient, okay? And many of these social media platforms have apps that are designed for the phone. Now, when we get into social media, and I would include myself and arguably anybody in this category, when we get into social media and we get into the idea of uploading content, Now, I understand that there are some people who get into social media and they are what we are going to call creepers. A creeper. What is a creeper? A creeper is a person who creates a social media account. They don't really have a profile picture and they don't post anything. They just kind of creep on other people's accounts and kind of like to watch what's happening, but they themselves do not post any content. Okay, so we have some creepers in the world. They do exist. However, for people who want to create content on social media, there are normally, I would argue, 3 things or 3 reasons why people post on social media. Reason number 1, views. When people post something to social media, they want to see how many views their video got, how many views their post got. We've heard it a million times. Oh, I just uploaded my video and it got 5,000 views in 5 hours, and people cream themselves over views. It just gets them off. So views are a big reason why people upload content onto social media. They want to upload something and see how many views can they get. Can they get hundreds of views? Can they get thousands of views? Can they get millions of views? Views are very attractive. That's one reason I would argue why people post content on social media. The second reason why people post content, I would argue, on social media is for likes. You know that little love heart? What do they do? This little love heart? Or the little thumbs up? You know the way when you go on YouTube and you can click the little thumbs up and it gives you a like? Or you go on to Instagram and you click the little love heart and the wee love heart goes up across your screen? Yeah. So when people upload content, how many likes did you get? Oh, did you see my post? My post got 2,000 likes in 2 hours. Cream themselves again. Okay, so not only do they get the views and they cream themselves, but they then get the likes and they cream themselves again. All right. So that's the second reason. The third reason, I would argue, why people upload content to social media is for followers or subscribers. They are the same thing. Followers, subscribers. So again, how many times have we heard it? Oh, I've got a YouTube channel. How many followers do you have? Oh, well, I've got 150 followers, but my Instagram, it's got 5,000. People get very excited about followers. Here on Bandido Talks, the last time I checked, we have 11 subscribers. The point being, people, when they go on to social media, they want to, when they post content from their profile, from their channel, what are they really wanting to do? Now, some people may be listening to this and say, oh no, that's not me. No. I don't go on to social media for likes. I don't go on to social media for views. I don't go on to social media for followers. No, I just post for the good of my heart. I just post because, I want to just get information out there into the online space. I don't care about likes and views and subscribers. All right. I'm sure you do. Are there some Mother Teresas out there on social media? I'm sure there are. But I would argue that they are few and far between. Maybe there's a Mother Teresa watching this live stream right now. If you are a Mother Teresa and you're one of these people who really, honestly couldn't give a fiddler's about views and, subscribers and love hearts and likes, put a message in the chat. Great. You're few and far between, because I would argue that most people who go on to social media, they are chasing 1 or all of those things? Normally it's all of them. So when people go on to produce, providing you're not a creeper and providing you're not Mother Teresa, okay, most people, when they go on to social media, they are looking to get views, they are looking to get likes, they are looking to get followers and subscribers. I would argue that is the underlying motivation. People will tell you, that's not my motivation, I don't do it, I do it because of reason X and I do it because of this. They're probably lying to you. That is probably a lie. Most people want likes, views, subscribers and followers. And if anybody's telling you anything otherwise, I would say they're probably lying. Now, bear with me, okay? Bear with me because this is related to our story of the motorcyclist getting off his motorcycle, feeding and recording himself, or attempting to feed and record himself doing this with a grizzly bear. It's related. Why do people want likes, views, and subscribers? Why? I would argue that they want these three things because they are chasing what I am going to call pseudo-esteem. Pseudo-esteem. Now, I did not create this concept. I have borrowed this concept from another individual, and maybe this individual will become a guest on our show one day. And then we can reference this episode and get this individual to talk a little bit more about this concept from their own perspective. But I'm borrowing the concept. So what I think is, people want likes, views, and subscribers because they want pseudo-esteem. Pseudo-esteem. Now, what is pseudo-esteem? Well, for us to understand what pseudo-esteem is, we must first understand what is esteem. So what's the difference between esteem and pseudo-esteem? Okay, so let's have a look at esteem. What is esteem? Let's use an example. Let's say we have, Andrew the plumber. Andrew the plumber. Okay, so let's imagine we have this guy called Andrew, and he's a plumber. And let's say Betty down the street has a burst pipe. And Betty is all bent out of shape over her burst pipe. Okay, she got up this morning, she turned the tap, she realised she had no water. She thought, that's a wee bit unusual. And then she realises somehow that she has a burst pipe. Now Betty's panicking and she's thinking, oh gosh, I've got no water and this burst pipe, it could create a whole load of damage and oh dear, this isn't good. So what does Betty do? Betty picks up her phone and she rings Andrew the plumber. She gets on the phone and says, Andrew, I've got a burst pipe. I have a burst pipe and it's an emergency. I need to get it sorted as soon as possible. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole bunch of damage in the house. So anyway, Andrew picks up the call and says, Betty, don't worry. I'll be down there in 5 minutes. So Andrew hops in the car, goes down to Betty's house. Betty greets him. Andrew, here's where the burst pipe is. So anyway, Andrew the plumber goes and does what Andrew the plumber does best. Plumbing. Okay? He's got a great skill set. A very valuable skill set that people admire, people appreciate, people value Andrew's skill set. He's offering something valuable to people. Okay? So Andrew goes into Betty's house and he fixes Betty's burst pipe. Now you can imagine. He does it all in 30 minutes, let's say. So Andrew works at speed. So he fixes Betty's burst pipe. What do you think Betty is going to say to Andrew? Oh, Andrew, you're just fantastic. You're the greatest person ever. You You came down on short notice and I had a problem, and you've saved my house, you've saved so much damage that was going to happen. Oh, it's just, I can't thank you enough. Thank you. Here's £200 for all of your effort. Anyway, Betty starts to praise the rear end of Andrew. She starts to praise him. In other words, she starts to give Andrew a whole bunch of positive feedback. In other words, she starts to give Andrew a whole bunch of esteem. What is esteem? Esteem is positive feedback. So here we have Betty and Andrew in the same room, okay, in the real world, the real physical world, okay. Betty has called Andrew. She had a problem. It was a burst pipe. Andrew received the call, sped down to Betty's house, solved the problem with his marvellous skill set. And as a result of this, Betty really appreciates what Andrew the plumber has done for her. So what does Betty do? Betty starts to give Andrew the plumber a whole bunch of positive feedback. What's another way for saying positive feedback? Esteem. She starts to give Andrew a whole bunch of real-time esteem. What do I mean by real-time esteem? Andrew and Betty are in the same room, in the same space, and Betty is literally, Andrew is able to hear Betty and see Betty, read Betty's body language, hear Betty's own tone of voice, her own words, get the whole entire vibe off Betty. He's able to feel, hear, sense it all. He receives all of this positive esteem, positive feedback, there and then on the spot. So what has happened? Betty has essentially esteemed Andrew. She has given Andrew a whole bunch of positive feedback because of the super valuable thing that Andrew has done for Betty. He has fixed her burst pipe. Now what happens? Betty then goes off and starts to talk to her friends. And what does she start to do? She starts to tell her friends what an outstanding young man Andrew is and how he answered the call super quickly. He came straight down to the house, got the problem sorted, super quick, super nice young man. She highly recommends Andrew to all of her friends. So what has happened? Not only has Betty esteemed Andrew himself, but she has enhanced Andrew's reputation within the wider community. How has she done that? She has went to all of her friends and all of her people who she meets, and she's told them what a brilliant human Andrew is. So what has happened here? What has happened is Andrew has done something valuable for Betty. There and then, on the spot, in the same space, Betty and Andrew were in a positive, virtuous esteem cycle. So Betty is complimenting Andrew. Andrew is receiving the esteem. Andrew thanks Betty for calling him and says to Betty, call me anytime when you have a problem. There's this virtuous esteem cycle that's happening between Betty and Andrew. Andrew's done something valuable for Betty. Betty really appreciates what Andrew has done. Andrew loves the fact that Betty loves what he has done, and the two are just exchanging positive esteem. There's a positive esteem flow between these two people. It's real-time esteem. Two humans in the same room, in the real world, the physical world, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, feeling the positive esteem flow. Through the English language in this case, verbally. Betty then goes off and further enhances Andrew's reputation by speaking incredibly positively about Andrew to all of her friends. So what is happening here, folks? What is happening is Andrew is receiving direct esteem from Betty, and so as a result, his reputation is starting to increase. He has reputational enhancement with Betty. His credibility with Betty has just went up a number of notches. Okay? In other words, his status has increased, because when you receive real-time positive esteem, positive feedback, your status with that person increases. Why? Because that person values you in some way for something that you've done. When you do valuable things for people, your status with those people increases because you're more valuable to them people. Betty goes and tells her friends about Andrew's wonderful exploits in her house with her burst pipe. So what then happens? So after Betty has already esteemed the rear end of Andrew, Andrew then receives further reputational enhancement through Betty. So Betty almost acts as Andrew's PR agent to all of her friends. And what happens? All of Betty's friends, Andrew now appears on their radar. They now view Andrew more positively because Betty has given a glowing recommendation of Andrew as a person and Andrew as a plumber. So what happens? In the wider community, Betty's friends then tell their friends about Andrew the plumber and what they did for one of their friends. So what does all of this mean? It means Andrew's reputation within the community increases. Andrew's credibility within the community increases. And ultimately, at the top of it, Andrew's status within the community increases. This is esteem, okay? When you do valuable things for people, they esteem you. What does that mean? It means they give you positive feedback. They tell you what a great job you did. They tell you how great you are. They tell you that they want you to come back again and do another job for them because you did the first job so marvelously well. They are giving you positive feedback, positive esteem, which increases your reputation with that person and also your reputation within the community, because that person will tell their friends and their friends will tell other people about what you did for Betty. You received esteem. Esteem causes you to increase your status or standing with that person and within the community. That is esteem. What is pseudoesteem? Notice the difference. Pseudoesteem. Pseudoesteem is what we receive on social media. Think of it, folks. What did we talk about? The three motivating reasons why most people, post content online. Likes, views, followers/subscribers. Pseudoesteem is a type of pseudo-positive feedback. It's a kind of positive feedback that is it tickles similar circuits to real esteem. So it tickles them. Okay? It's a superficially similar process to the real esteem that Betty and Andrew were exchanging. So it tickles those same circuits, but it's not exactly the same thing. It's not real esteem between real people in the real world. It's esteem through a medium. What do I mean by that? It's esteem through a medium. It's esteem through a medium. What is the medium? Technology. Pseudoesteem is a form of positive feedback that you receive through a medium. You do not receive it from the source. When Betty and Andrew the plumber are in this virtuous esteem cycle, where they're bouncing positive feedback off one another, and Andrew the plumber's reputation goes up in status with Betty. Andrew the plumber's reputation within the wider community increases. His status within the wider community increases because of what he did for Betty. Real esteem from real people that matter, and Andrew the plumber has earned esteem in the right way from people who matter in the real world. Pseudo-esteem is where you earn positive feedback through a medium. That's why we call it pseudo-esteem, because you're not receiving the esteem directly from the source in the real world. This is not the real world. When you go on to social media, the social media world does not exist in the real world. It exists in the online space. The online space is not the real world. It's something digital. Okay? And when you receive subscribers, views, likes, you are receiving these through a medium, a digital medium. You're not receiving it from the source. And better still, you're receiving it a lot of the times from faceless, nameless accounts that may not even be real people. They may be AI bots. So pseudo-esteem, when you go on to social media and you post some sort of content on social media and you get a like for your content, you get views for your content, you get subscribers that come from that particular content. What is happening here? You are receiving pseudo-esteem. The pseudo-esteem that you're receiving is coming via views, likes, and subscribers. Notice, folks, this is not real. They are numbers on a screen. And when I say it's not real, what I mean is it's not real in the physical world. They are literally numbers on a screen. Most of the time, we don't even know the people who have given us the views. We don't even know the people who have given us the likes. We don't even know the people who are subscribed to us. We don't even know them personally. They are just accounts. It is just numbers on a screen. What are views? Numbers on a screen. What are likes? Numbers on a screen. What are subscribers? Numbers on a screen. When we receive subscribers, views, and likes, we are receiving pseudo-esteem. Okay? It's not real esteem from real people in the real world. It is pseudo-esteem coming through a digital medium. Different things. Andrew and Betty's process is very different. The esteem process that's happening with Andrew and Betty is very different to the esteem process that you receive when you upload a video online and you get likes, views, and subscribers. Now, why am I even saying all this? How is this related to a man in Albania getting off his motorcycle and feeding a wild grizzly bear? Here's my theory as to why this man did something which one could say is an act of stupidity. Here's what I think. I think this man was seduced by pseudo-esteem. Let me say that again. I think this man was seduced by the prospect of pseudo-esteem. What do I mean by this? Here's what I think. I think this man was going along the road on his motorcycle. I think this man saw a grizzly bear off the side of the road. And I think this man thought, if I stop my motorcycle and I get off it and I feed this grizzly bear and I record myself feeding this grizzly bear, I will have a piece of video content that I can then subsequently upload to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And when I upload this cool piece of content of me going to feed a grizzly bear, it will get what? Likes, views, subscribers. In other words, it will get pseudo-esteem. In other words, I will receive positive feedback through a digital medium. He ended up losing his life. And I'm arguing that this gentleman was seduced by the social media pseudo-esteem trap. Because that is what it is. It is a trap. Pseudo-esteem is not the same as real life, real time esteem in the real world. When you are doing something valuable for people, you want to be doing something valuable and earning your esteem in the right way from people that matter. I have also borrowed that quote. I did not make that quote up. That is not mine. That quote came from the same individual who coined the phrase pseudo-esteem. And I'm going to say it again. Maybe I will have this person on and we will reference this episode when they are on as a guest and they can give their theory about esteem and pseudo-esteem in more depth when they come on to the show as a guest. Let us see. But what we want to do, we want to earn esteem in the right way from people that matter in the real world. This is not the real world. This is a digital medium for exchanging information. Okay? And part of the information that gets exchanged through social media is pseudo-esteem. Pseudo-esteem through likes, through followers, through views. And it is an incredibly seductive trap. And I think the gentleman who got off his motorcycle, I think his underlying motivation, and why do I think this? If he had of, think of this, if he had of got off his motorcycle and just fed the bear, no phone, just fed the bear, then fair enough. Maybe my argument is much weaker then. But what did he do, folks? What did he do? He didn't just feed the bear. He took out his phone to record himself feeding the bear. Think, why would he do that? Do you think he was just looking to have a personal video on his phone that he was never going to share with anyone? Was he Mother Teresa of social media? No, I would argue not. I don't think he was looking to take a video of himself feeding a wild grizzly bear just so he could keep the video hidden on his own phone and for him just to watch it in years to come. I don't think that's why he was doing that. I think he thought, if I can capture this moment on my phone, this will make a video that is going to acquire views, likes, subscribers, comments. In other words, if he can pull this off, he is going to acquire a whole bunch of pseudo-esteem from the internet. And as a result, he is thinking, I can increase my reputation. I can make myself more credible. I can appear a more valuable human. And I can ultimately increase my status as a human if I can pull off this video of me feeding a wild grizzly bear. He got seduced, I am convinced, My theory, I am convinced he got seduced by the pseudo-esteem social media trap, and he paid his life for it. That's what I think. Because when we look at this, folks, and this is the lesson, not even the lesson, it's us trying to understand. It looks stupid. It looks like an act of stupidity. But is it an act of stupidity? I would argue it is not an act of stupidity. I think you're seeing a human who is totally seduced by the pseudo-esteem social media trap. He thinks that if he can pull this off, he is going to get a whole bunch of status and credit by uploading this daring video to social media. Look at me. I'm going to feed a wild grizzly bear. Look at me. I'm feeding a wild grizzly bear. How cool am I? How daring am I? How open am I? How much of a marvelous human must I be to be able to not just feed a grizzly bear, not just record myself feeding a grizzly bear, but actually come out of this encounter unscathed and still alive and breathing. How much of an unbelievable human must I be? I would argue that is what is in this man's head. He may not even be consciously thinking of it. But I think somewhere in his psychology, somewhere in his motivational matrix, deep down in there, he is thinking, if I can capture this on video and I upload this to social media, I will get a whole bunch of credit. But what this man, and this is the lesson, folks, what I would argue, if this is true, and I am right about this theory, what I am trying to say here as the lesson is what this man does not realize is that he is pursuing esteem in the wrong way. He does not realize what he is doing. He is seeking esteem in the wrong way from people that do not matter. What did we just say? Online, most of the people who subscribe to your channel, most of the people who watch your videos, most of the people who like your videos, you don't even know them. Especially if you have a big channel. But let's say you have a small channel, because some people might say, no, all of my social media videos and posts, I know who like them. They're my friends. Okay, so let's say you do know them. It still doesn't matter, because the mechanism by which you are receiving the esteem is through a digital medium. You're not actually receiving that esteem from a real person in real time in the physical world, where you can hear their words, you can hear their tone of voice, you can stare them in the eye, you can read their body language, you can feel their entire vibe. There's a difference. When you receive pseudo-esteem online, let me give you an analogy. Pseudo-esteem, remember, we've got two processes here. We've got esteem and pseudo-esteem. Okay? Esteem, pseudo-esteem. Pseudo-esteem is the equivalent to processed junk garbage food. That is what pseudo-esteem is like. Processed junk food. Real-time esteem, earned in the right way from people that matter, is like healthy chow. It's like your fruits and vegetables. It's like your starches. It's like your healthy chow. What should we be eating? Should we be eating junk processed junk? Or should we be eating healthy chow that we know is good for our body? Well, of course we should be eating healthy chow that we know is good for our body. However, can we get away with eating junk food garbage? Can we exist on fizzy drinks, chocolate bars, and crisps? Of course we can. There are people on the planet who not only eat junk food, garbage, processed fucking crap. There are people that not only exist on that type of diet, but they also smoke, they drink loads of alcohol, they maybe do drugs from time to time, and they still are able to exist and live fairly long lives, despite the absolute crap that they put into their body. Pseudoesteem is the equivalent to junk food, crap, alcohol, cigarettes, you name it. That is what pseudoesteem is like. It is garbage. It is a garbage way for you to earn your esteem. The right way to earn your esteem is real-time esteem. From real people, earning it in the right way from people that matter. Just like Betty and Andrew the plumber. That is how you want to earn your esteem. That is how you want to enhance your reputation. That is how you want to enhance your credibility. That is how you want to increase your status with other people and within your community. You want to do it in the real world with real people who are sincere and honest in their positive feedback and esteem flow. Can you get your esteem from the online sphere? Well, if you do, I would argue it is not esteem. It is pseudo-esteem. Just in the same way as you can get your calories from processed junk. Fizzy drinks, chocolate bars, just absolute garbage food. Fried food, you name it. You can get your calories from junk processed food. Oh, you can. And you can live and persist on that kind of diet. Now, you may feel lousy. You may feel like you're underperforming physically, like you're not functioning the way your body was intended to function, but you can survive on that type of diet. Just in the same way as you can survive on pseudo-esteem, you can survive spending your entire life staring at your phone, watching your likes, watching your views, watching your subscriber. In other words, you can spend your entire existence, hour after hour, day after day, month after month, year after year, pursuing likes, views, and subscribers through the digital medium of social media. You can spend your life acquiring pseudo-esteem. And don't get me wrong, when you get a little like or a love heart or a thumbs up, or you get hundreds of views on your videos, or you get multiple subscribers coming off your video content or your general social media content, do you get a little dopamine release? Does it feel good? Well, of course it does. That's why it's a trap. When you get a like or multiple likes, you can feel it. We can feel it intuitively. It feels good. Just like when you eat processed junk, people call it comfort food. A big tub of ice cream. It feels good in the moment. All of those super high density calories. It feels good in the moment. You're eating that big, luxurious Magnum ice cream or the big luxurious Galaxy chocolate bar, whatever it is. You're eating it in the moment and you can feel the dopamine release from the high calories. Just in the same way as you can feel the dopamine release whenever you start to get lots of likes on your videos, lots of views on your videos, lots of subscribers coming to your channel. There are little dopamine releases. But make no mistake, folks, it is a trap. The pseudo-esteem social media trap. It is a trap. Just in the same way as junk processed food is a trap. We know it's not good for us. Yet why do people still consume that food? Well, they consume it because, number one, it's super high calorie density. It tastes good, in other words. It tastes good in the moment. And then number 2, energy conservation. What is more efficient? To peel open the packet of a chocolate bar and stuff it down your gob in 1 minute? Or go to your pantry, start chopping vegetables, good healthy chow, put on your brown rice, cook up the vegetables, make a nice sauce, get yourself a nice salad together, lettuce, tomato, cucumber, some peppers, whatever it is, make yourself a nice dressing, get the brown rice cooked, put it into a plate, wait for the vegetables to cook or saute, put that on top of the brown rice, then toss the salad in the dress. You can see what takes more effort. It takes more effort to make the healthy chow. But the healthy chow is better for your body and the functioning of your body. So you have to expend more energy to make the healthy chow. But when you have the chocolate bar in a nice little neat wrapper, not only does the chocolate bar have more calories than your healthy chow might be, 600 calories a pound, but your chocolate bar might be 2,000 calories a pound. Which tastes better? Well, obviously, the chocolate bar, because it has a higher calorie density, tastes better. That's normal. That's just animal biology. The higher calorie density food tastes better than the lower calorie density food, especially if your palate is neuroadapted to higher calorie density food. And then secondly, because there is so much energy conservation, all you have to do is open a wrapper and you have access to 2,000 calorie a pound food. While when it comes to the healthy chow, you need to chop stuff, you need to cook it, you might need multiple saucepans, you have to wait for the food to cook, it takes 20 minutes for the brown rice to boil, and then you have to let it sit for another 10 minutes so the water can absorb into the brown rice, so that you have the right texture for the rice. It takes more energy. However, even though it takes more energy to prepare the healthy chow and it has lower calorie density, so it doesn't taste quite as stimulating as a chocolate bar, we all know that we should be eating the healthy chow. We know we should be eating it. So why do we not eat it? Because it is a pleasure trap. The processed junk is a pleasure trap. Pseudoesteem is a pleasure trap. It's the same thing. The processed junk is high calorie density and it's energy conserving. It hits the energy conservation mechanism in humans because all you have to do is peel open the wrapper or squeeze open the cap of the bottle of the fizzy drink, whatever it is, or the chocolate shake. The healthy chow is different. It takes more energy to make it and it's got lower calories. And if you haven't got a palate that is neuroadapted to lower calorie density food, it can taste like disgusting swill, disgusting, garbage, like cardboard. It can taste like. Pseudoesteem is like junk food. Pseudoesteem is a trap, just like junk food is a trap. Pseudoesteem, why is it a trap? Because you go on to the online space and all you have to do is upload a video. Energy conservation. Ding, ding, ding. That's the first thing. All you have to do is literally twiddle your thumbs and upload a video. And you can immediately start to get likes, views, subscribers. Pseudoesteem. You can start to get this pseudo-positive feedback, which dings the little dopamine circuits. Is it more effort to go out into the real world and talk to real people and do valuable things for people in the real world? Is that more effort? Yes, it's more effort. Is it, though, the best way to earn your esteem in the real world? Doing valuable things for people that matter? I would argue that is the best way to earn your esteem. That is the best way to receive your positive feedback from the world. That is the best way to increase your reputation and your standing and your credibility among your peers and to ultimately increase your status with other people and in your community. That is what I would argue. I would argue that's the best way to do it. Pseudoesteem is a trap. It's a trap because it has you locked to this device for hours and hours and hours, pursuing something that gives you a little dopamine hit, like a like views, and it has you tied to this. And what do you end up doing? You spend the vast majority of your existence tied to the digital medium, and you forget to live your own existence and to actually interact with real people and get esteem from real people by doing valuable things. The gentleman who was on his motorcycle in Albania, my theory is he got seduced by that pseudo-esteem social media trap. Now, in that case, it was not a good decision. But I would argue that his decision was not stupid. Even though it looks stupid, I would argue that it is not stupid. I would argue that he was highly motivated to try and capture this entire encounter on his mobile phone so that he could then use that video footage, post it online, and then gain a whole bunch of pseudo-esteem from nameless, faceless accounts on the internet, people who he doesn't know, people who are not giving him real-time esteem. All they are doing is clicking a fucking like button, clicking a subscribe button, or giving him a view. That is what I believe he was pursuing. He was not pursuing real, genuine esteem. He was pursuing pseudo-esteem from the online digital sphere. And what did he lose? He lost his life. Now, am I saying that because you engage in social media that you're going to lose your life? You mightn't lose your life in the way that our Albanian motorcyclist lost his life. Literally, he lost tissue function. So literally, that grizzly bear attacked him and literally killed him and started to eat him. So I'm not saying that you're going to literally die and lose your life like this Albanian motorcyclist did. But you effectively, if you get seduced sufficiently by the pseudo-esteem social media trap, you may not literally lose your life. In other words, you may not literally lose your tissue function like the Albanian motorcyclist. He literally lost his tissue function because the bear killed him and then started to literally consume his tissue. So he lost his tissue function. So I'm not saying you're going to lose your tissue function and thus your life if you engage in the pseudo-esteem trap game, but you, in a more metaphorical sense, effectively lose your life in a different way. How do you lose your life in a different way? And this is the lesson, folks. The Albanian motorcyclist literally lost his life. He died. But there's a lesson in here for all of us, because I believe, my theory is that the reason why he even did this was because he got seduced by the pseudo-esteem social media trap. Likes, views, subscribers. The lesson here, folks, is we may not lose our lives literally like the Albanian motorcyclist, but we may effectively lose our lives by dwindling away the hours of our existence, pursuing something that is not worth pursuing to the degree that we are pursuing it. We could effectively lose our life by not spending time with people who we actually care about, people who we actually value in the real physical world, trying to do valuable things for these people, and sort of establishing virtuous esteem flow cycles with real people in the real world, enhancing our reputation and increasing our status in the right way. Instead, we could literally lose our lives. We can let our life pass us by in a flash because we are pseudo-esteem. In other words, remember, It's the equivalent of junk food. We are essentially consuming junk food when we pursue pseudo-esteem through the online digital environment. And you end up, if you do this, if you are deep enough down this rabbit hole, you effectively lose your life. You may not lose it so imminently and quickly like the Albanian motorcyclist, because the grizzly bear literally took his tissue. But you effectively lose your life. You effectively lose it because you spend and essentially dwindle away your precious hours. I'm 30 years of age. The Bandido is 30 years of age. I am over a third of the way through my life. I'm over a third of the way through my life. I probably have less than 200,000 hours of time to breathe and be active on this planet. Think about that. 30 years of age, 200,000 hours, approximately. That's all I have left. And the pseudo-esteem social media trap could essentially cause those 200,000 hours that I could be investing elsewhere in productive places, seeking esteem in the right way from people that matter by doing valuable things for people in the real physical world. I could let those 200,000 hours essentially drain away, not doing that, but instead let them drain away by getting seduced by the pseudo-esteem social media trap. I could let the hours of my existence dwindle away as I scroll mindlessly, seeking the views, seeking the likes, seeking the subscribers, feeling the little dopamine rush whenever I get those bits of pseudo-esteem feedback, the pseudo-positive feedback. And this isn't just for content creators, folks. For content creators, the likes, the views, the subscribers, this is a big deal. But even for the creepers, we talked about the creepers already. We talked about the creepers. The creepers who don't have a profile picture. The creepers who do not produce content on social media. You too, if you are a creeper, you are also potentially at risk of falling into this, not so much the pseudo-esteem social media trap, but the broader social media trap. The social media trap as a whole. We've been talking a lot about the pseudo-esteem part of the social media trap. But the social media trap as a whole, where it's almost like slot machines, where you're scrolling, either scrolling left or right or up or down. It's so seductive. It's such a seductive process to just sit there, not expend any energy, conserve your energy, and just consume content by scrolling. And you're essentially scrolling your existence away. Those 200,000 hours that I have, or maybe you have 150,000, maybe you're older than me, maybe 100,000. You scroll them away. So whether you're a content creator pursuing the pseudo-esteem, the likes, the views, the subscribers, or you're a creeper, if you are a creeper, don't think you're getting away handily out of this discussion, because you too are in the broader social media trap. The content creators, they're in the pseudo-esteem social media trap, I would argue. That is where I think the Albanian motorcyclist falls into that category. He would have fallen into that category had he managed to survive. But make no mistake, if you are a creeper on social media or someone who does not produce content but consumes content, you're in the broader social media trap. In exactly the same way as you could be in the dietary pleasure trap, the junk processed food dietary pleasure trap. It's the same thing. So the lesson here, folks, is let's not get seduced by pseudoesteem. Pseudoesteem is not real. Pseudoesteem is numbers on a screen. Likes are simply numbers on a screen. Views are simply numbers on a screen. Subscribers are numbers on a screen. It is not real. For all you know, the numbers mightn't even be real. They may be tinkered with. Maybe the social media platforms are feeding you phony numbers and they're not even real. And you think they're real. And so you continue to pursue them. This is the key lesson here, folks. Do not get seduced by pseudoesteem. Am I saying that you can't use social media? Of course not. Social media can be used to share information. Of course it can. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. Because somebody might say, well, you're very hypocritical because here you are on YouTube, on your live stream, doing the very thing that you're arguing that the Albanian motorcyclists shouldn't have done, which is dedicate a whole bunch of time to social media and get seduced by the pseudo-esteem that may come from this live stream. Well, I would argue, when you understand the trap, you can then seek to find the right balance. So yes, I am doing this live stream now, but what I am not going to do is I am not going to sit on my phone all day tomorrow, scrolling and trying to enhance and getting completely seduced by the likes, by the subscribers, by the views. I will not get seduced. Does that mean I can't produce valuable content? And does that mean you, as a content creator, you cannot put out valuable content? Of course not. But it's like everything. It has to be in the right balance. Me coming on here and doing a live stream, no problem. No problem. But what happens if I spend my entire day glued to my phone, glued to my laptop, glued to all of this technology? I'm now out of balance. We want to be hitting the sweet spot, folks. It's not that you can't use social media, but you must understand how this sort of stuff is set up and how seductive it can be, especially pseudoesteem. Pseudoesteem can be incredibly seductive to the point where people will literally replace real-time esteem in the real physical world with pseudoesteem. People will literally sit in their houses and not interact with other people, not try to find virtuous esteem cycles with other real people. Instead, what they will do is they will default to the junk garbage food equivalent of esteem, which is pseudoesteem. And they will spend their whole day seeking pseudoesteem through these things. And that, I think, is the lesson. It's the balance, folks. Can you produce content on the internet? Yes. No problem. Do you want to get seduced by the pseudoesteem to the point where you spend your entire day, all the hours in your day, all your waking hours, scrolling and trying to enhance the likes, the views, and the subscribers? Now you're out of balance. And in the case of our Albanian motorcyclist, not only can you be out of balance, but you can end up walking yourself into very dangerous, unpredictable situations, because you may end up doing very risky behaviors in order to capture something on your phone, all in the name of pseudoesteem that is potentially going to come when you upload your risky, dangerous video. So, I know the thumbnail for our episode tonight was From Needy to Greedy. We're probably not going to get on to the greedy part of our thumbnail. But we're going to bring this full circle now. Okay? Right back to the start. Neediness. Okay? neediness. I told you that neediness was one of my pet hates. Actually, not was, it is one of my pet hates. And I would argue that the Albanian motorcyclist who lost his life trying to record himself feeding a wild grizzly bear, I would argue that this gentleman was too needy for pseudo-esteem. That's my theory. He became too needy. And that's what I'm trying to say here, folks. When you become needy or desperate or too clingy to something, you can end up walking yourself into very, very risky situations because your underlying motivation for getting yourself into that risky, dangerous situation in the first place is all built on the idea of you acquiring pseudo-esteem. And this is the problem. When you are needy for pseudo-esteem, in other words, when you are seduced by pseudo-esteem and you become needy for it, it's like a drug. It is like a drug. And what happens when you have an alcoholic? An alcoholic is a person who cannot control themselves around alcohol. And so we could use the term, they are needy for alcohol. They need alcohol. They are desperate for alcohol. See him with a drug addict. See him with a cigarette smoker. See him with someone who is knee-deep in junk processed food. They are needy for the dopamine release from the consumption of certain products, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, food, junk food, or from the dopamine release that comes with pseudo-esteem. It is literally like a drug. Pseudo-esteem. Now, am I saying that pseudo-esteem is as addictive as heroin? No. And I'm obviously using this simile like a drug to get the point across. But it is effectively a type of low-grade drug. Heroin, cocaine, these are hard drugs, okay? Very powerful. I'm not saying that pseudo-esteem is on the level of a cocaine or heroin. But what I am saying is it's like a lower level drug. It's an addictive thing. It's an addictive process. And it's so addictive that we can become so needy, desperate, clingy to achieve or acquire pseudo-esteem that we end up either, number one, literally losing our lives because we've engaged in some risky behavior and we've tried to capture it on video so that we can upload it and achieve all the pseudo-esteem that comes with the upload, likes, views, subscribers, comments. Or we effectively lose our life as we pass our waking hours glued to technology, glued to the online digital space, where things are literally not real. They do not exist in the real world. They only exist through this digital medium, which can, of course, be manipulated. So the things that you're seeing, the likes that you're seeing, the views you're seeing, the subscribers you're seeing, they may not even be real. The numbers might be phony. They may be fabricated. And as a result, that's a double whammy because you're now not even pursuing something that's authentic. So, we didn't quite get on to greedy. But I think this was important. I think this is valuable for us to understand how we can be seduced into pursuing pseudo-esteem instead of trying to engineer our existence, an existence that's more balanced. It's not that you cannot post things online. That is not what we are saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you don't want to become out of balance to the point where you hardly seek real esteem from real people in the real world and you put all your eggs in the pseudo-esteem basket. That is the recipe for a life not fully lived. That is what I would say. And it's also a recipe for a life that may lead to behaviours that are incredibly risky and dangerous, such as our Albanian motorcyclist, who I believe engaged not in an act of stupidity, but actually more he fell for a trap. He fell into a trap. The trap being the Pseudoesteem social media trap. That's what I believe. That is why I think he had the phone out. That is why I think he was trying to record the entire encounter. He was trying to record the entire encounter because he knew that if he could, which he obviously thought he could, survive this encounter, he would have video footage of this remarkable coming together of wild beast and human. And when he would upload this, no doubt to social media, he would receive all of the pseudo-esteem that would effectively increase his status in a way that would be consistent with the online space. He would increase his status in the online space through views, likes, and subscribers perhaps to his channel. But he's been seduced by a trap. He's fallen into a trap. And he's ended up doing something that's cost him his life. Because he thought that he could increase ultimately his status by getting lots of views and clicks and subscribers on this potential video that he was going to upload. That's my take. That's my take. So, that's a long episode tonight. What time are we on? We are on... Oh, wow. 5 minutes past 10. I can hear fireworks going on outside. Maybe you can hear them through my microphone. I hope they are fireworks. But anyway, that's episode 5, folks. From needy to greedy. I hope that it makes sense what we were talking about tonight. I think you can definitely hear all of that. Yeah, fireworks time. What, the 24th of October? I suppose it's Halloween. When I have the headphones on, it sounds a little bit funny actually through the headphones, but episode 5, from needy to greedy. Didn't quite get to the greedy part, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Bit of a long episode tonight. Bit of an amusing story at the start of our show about how I've actually done this show twice now. But it's funny, the second time I've done the show, it's completely different to the first time. So hopefully, folks, you have got something interesting and of value out of our show tonight. We will be live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for News on the Tube. We'll be back again, going down through our bog standard news articles and trying to extract the lessons from those news articles. News on the Tube tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Feel free to join us. If you liked what you were hearing tonight, feel free to like the video. Maybe somebody might say this is very hypocritical, Mr. Bandido, that you're saying for people to like your video, to comment down below, to subscribe to the channel if you feel like the content from Bandido Talks is very interesting or valuable. People may say it's hypocritical, given what I've just talked about. But remember, please go back and listen. It's not that we cannot upload content to the digital space. It's more about, are we in balance? And if we start to become out of balance, then we need to address the behavior that's causing us to fall out of balance. If we are in balance, then it can be actually very productive to upload content to the internet and be valuable to people who may not live in your country, may not live in your community. Maybe people see your content over in Australia. Maybe people see your content in the United States. These are people who you maybe wouldn't be able to reach if you didn't have social media and the ability to communicate via the digital medium. So it is fine to offer value to the online space. However, let us not get seduced by it. Let us not be needy for pseudo-esteem. Let us not fall into the trap. And let us not lose our lives, either literally or effectively, through a process whereby we are pursuing something that is not really, it's a pseudo-esteem. It's not a real thing. It's a process that doesn't put a patch on the real-time esteem process that we can engage in the physical world with real people by offering value to them. That is all for tonight, folks. I will see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m, news on the tube. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. I hope to get chatting to you Saturday, 7 p.m. Take care, folks, and we will be in touch, 7 p.m. tomorrow evening.